What's up, y'all? Welcome to our first ever video to CR Sports Analysis. Today we got a small slate. We talk about NBA. Um, Bear with me. This is my first video. Might be a little scratchy, but we're gonna get better, man. We're gonna make an Instagram page for you to follow, Twitter, all of that. Today with the NBA, since it is a small slate, there are 4 games. I'm gonna mainly go in depth to the Milwaukee Golden State game as well as the Cleveland and Clippers game. Um, so to start off, mainly looking at this Boston and Brooklyn game, we can first go to a quick analysis on our covers.com website. Let's see, we got Boston is 23-12 at home, Brooklyn 12-23 away. Money line 820, spread 13.5. This game is pretty much self-explanatory. Boston money line, maybe to some type of parlay because they are, the odds are pretty high. It's pretty inflated odds. Last 10 games that Boston played Brooklyn, they're 9-1. So there's that. The last 10 games that Brooklyn has played this season, they're 2-8, and Boston are 7-3. Just coming off a win against Brooklyn, a close, tight game, 115 to 113. I'm thinking that Boston will blow them out the water this time. They're not gonna let something like that happen at home to their home crowd. And Brooklyn, they have some injuries with Zaire Williams and Clowney. They're both probable. Clowney is questionable for the day. Actually, Clowney is probable. Clowney is probable, so he most likely will play, but I still don't think it's gonna do anything to Boston. Boston is a pretty good team. As far as Boston's injuries, Jaylen Brown is out. Tatum is questionable for today, so be on the lookout for those guys come closer to game time because that can really like majorly impact the money line if you are throwing it on some type of parlay. Because without Tatum or Brown, then I can see the money line going from 820 down to like minus 300 or something, and then Brooklyn odds going to plus instead of plus 570, maybe plus 2. So those two guys could majorly impact this game. But if Tatum does play, it will be a blowout. Boston. So the quick analysis I do have for that game on the statistical side, um, Boston is leading in every offensive category. They're leading Brooklyn 116 to 105 points per game, field goal percentage. Boston averages 46 to Brooklyn's 43. 3-point percentage 36% to Brooklyn 34. Free throw percentage right around the same, but Boston is a better team with a higher free throw percentage than Brooklyn, just by about 0.60%. Defensive side, Boston allows around 108 points per game compared to Brooklyn at around 111. Field goal percentage allowed, Boston allows 45% to Brooklyn's 47. 3-point percentage allowed, Boston allows around 35% compared to Brooklyn's 33%, 36%, excuse me. Blocks and steals, Boston does have a higher stat padding category in blocks compared to Brooklyn, but something to look at is Boston will turn the ball over, and Brooklyn does have a high percentage in getting steals this season. They average around 7.84, while Boston allows around 7.31. Not a major difference, but it can make a difference in a game where Tatum could potentially be out. Player wise, I don't have a big analysis on the players today, just for My alt lines today, the main alt lines I'm gonna talk about in this video, I only have two, maybe three props that are, valued at 50-50 for today, but majorly have alt lines for today. So the alt lines I do have for today in this game is just Porzingus. I only got Porzingus for 15 points. If I wanted to find some more, I could, but with alt lines, you don't want to force them. You want them to be guaranteed. I'm gonna go over here to my props cash. You know, looking at the points, Boston is first in defending players in the position of Nicholas Claxton, Sharp, Keon Johnson, and Tyrese Martin. So those are pretty much their main players. So if Boston's able to shut those players down, it most likely will be a blowout. I mean, if Tatum is playing, this is gonna solidify the blowout. But if Tatum is not playing, I consider it to be, maybe a close second quarter, maybe third, but first and fourth quarter, Boston will come to play at home in front of their home crowd. And that's pretty much a rival matchup, Brooklyn versus Boston. So, I mean, Boston fans are going to be lit for that game. They're going to give them that energy. Maybe somebody else I could see hooping would be Drew Holiday. Because if you go to Drew Holiday's stats without Jaylen Brown, he jumps from, let's see, he jumps from 40% on a year of getting 12 points to, without Jaylen Brown, to a 56%. Head to head, 78% getting 12 points in 7 of 9 games versus Brooklyn since 2021. So the minutes might be different. This year he had 17 points against Brooklyn back in November, a long time ago, where his minutes and usage might have changed around, but I still see Drew Holiday maybe getting around 10 points. If you want to look at his assists, I could say easy 3 assists for alt line. His line is at 4.5. If you want to take the 4.5, that would be good value on that. That's just looking at Drew Holiday. Just to go over back to Porzingus, the main play I have today for this game would be Porzingus for 15 points. It does have good value because his line is at 18.5. So therefore, you could get good value out of him at 15 points depending on what book. He's never went back-to-back games this season without getting 15 points. Well, he did one time, but that he got injured, so that doesn't really count. So he never went back-to-back without getting 15 points this season. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. And then you look at him at home. He cashed this line 13 out of 14 games at home. No filters on that either. That's straight up for 15. I mean, without Jaylen Brown, it drops down to 60. But like I said, he still has never went back-to-back games without getting 15 points. And his last game without Jaylen Brown, he had 11. So this game without Jaylen Brown, he's more than likely is going to get 15 points according to this analysis. That's pretty much all I have for the Boston and Brooklyn game. Just, some sort of parlay, Boston money line, Porzingis 15 points. You could take the total. If I was to take the total, I would take it under. I would definitely take it under for the game because they're a defensive team. Both of these teams are really good on defense, and like I said, like Jalen Wilson ranks up like 7th in the league versus Boston, and that's not very good for the points. He only averages around 6 to 10 points a game. So if they're already locking him up and he's barely getting 10 points a game, he's one of the better players on Brooklyn. So you can see that him going under. I could see a couple players on Brooklyn going under. And if I was to look at the total for this game, it does say 214. So that is a pretty low total. So the books FanDuel, they got it already at a pretty low total, so you could scratch the under and could maybe go over the total points. But like I said, this is a I'm not really sure if a lot of people are gonna tune into this game because Boston can blow them out, especially if Tatum does play. So I mean, it could be a like I said, Boston money line, Porzingus 15 points. You could go over the total, maybe alt it down to maybe like 205. Each team getting around 105, 110 points. Could do that. But yeah, Boston money line, Porzingis 15 points for the Boston Brooklyn game. All right, on to the next game. We're going to be covering Charlotte versus Atlanta. In this game, we're looking at Charlotte. Charlotte is at home. They're 10-24 at home this season. Atlanta is away. They're 15-18 on the season. Charlotte money line plus 210. Atlanta money line minus 255. Spread sitting at 6.5. Plus 6.5 for Charlotte. In the last 3 games that Charlotte has played Atlanta, Atlanta has won all of those games. So that's something to look at. Atlanta has beat them all 3 times that they played this season. Charlotte's last 10 games, they're 3-7, coming off a loss to the Clippers. Atlanta's last 10 games, they're 5-5, coming off a loss to the Brooklyn Nets. And for this game, I don't really have a money line analysis because it could go either way. So we're gonna go based off of injuries, and both of these teams have major injuries. So me personally, I'm not gonna touch this game. If I do, it would be some sort of like LaMelo Ball 15 points on a parlay. I wouldn't really look into this game too much, but like I said, their injured players are just outrageous. Trae Young probable for the game, Achilles injury, and then they got Levert, Capella, and Nance. They're all out on the Atlanta side of things. And if you go over the Charlotte injuries, you got LaMelo Ball injured day-to-day, probable. With a wrist injury, his wrist has been hurt all year, so I mean, he's pretty much gonna play. But Charlotte injuries are bad. They got Trey Mann out for the season, Brandon Miller out for the season, and Grant Williams out for the season. Uh, I did not see Miles Bridges on the Props Cash website, so I'm not sure if he's injured today or if what's his deal today. But I didn't see him on there, so that could be Miles Bridges could be out for the day. Looking at a little bit more analysis on this game, Atlanta averages more points than Charlotte per game, 117-105. Atlanta has a better field goal percentage, sitting at 46% compared to Charlotte's 42%. The only offensive stat category that Charlotte is better at than Atlanta is free throw percentage, and this free throw percentage doesn't really mean too much on the game unless the team that would be playing Charlotte is a heavy team at fouling, and Atlanta doesn't really foul too much, so this free throw percentage doesn't really mean a lot. That's just on the offensive side of things. On the defensive side, however, Charlotte is better than Atlanta. Charlotte allows 113 points a game compared to Atlanta's 119. They allow a better field goal percentage on defense, statistically wise, at 46% compared to Atlanta's 48. And then you have 3-point percentage allowed. Charlotte allows 35%. Atlanta allows 37%. And those are mainly the only statistical categories that Charlotte is better than Atlanta at. As far as blocks and steals go, Atlanta is way better than Charlotte, mainly because of Dyson Daniels on the defensive side for Atlanta. Atlanta is averaging around 9.85 steals per game, while Charlotte is averaging around 7.8 blocks per game. Atlanta more at 5.35 and Charlotte at 4.61. Just on a player prop type of alternative line for today, if I was to throw it in some sort of parlay, like I said, I would put Mark Williams at 10 points and 8 rebounds. Mark Williams does pretty well against Atlanta, against Eastern Conference teams at home. So he should have around 10 to 15 points today and around 6 to 8, maybe 10 rebounds. The only other player I have for this is LaMelo, sitting at 6 assists. His assist line is great versus Eastern Conference teams. And if I go back to Props Cash, I believe LaMelo on assist. Yeah, LaMelo Ball had 9 assists last game versus them, versus Atlanta. The reason why I have him at 6 assists is because he has never went back-to-back games this whole season without getting 6 assists. And those are mainly my analysis that I look for when I do alternative lines, because it's just easier to look at, and then you can get better value. His line is sitting at 7.5, and if you bump it down 2, it's not gonna be that much of a difference, value wise. So you still could get some of the same value that you would get if you would take his normal line at 7.5. But 6 assists is what I got for LaMelo. Also for LaMelo, I had 15 to 20 points. 15 is a pretty much guaranteed line. If you want to go up for some value, I would do 20 points. And also on the defensive side of things, LaMelo Ball's line is at 1 steal, sitting at -110. That's a great line. If you look at steals for LaMelo Ball, he has got a steal in 7 of the 9 games that he's played Atlanta since 2021. And also, he's sitting around 73%. So he got a steal in 32 out of 42 games played this season. And if you want to look at home, he's 80% in his last 30 games at home and getting a steal in 24 out of 30 games. So, and it also goes back to his last 30 games. His last 30 games, he's never went back-to-back games without getting a steal. So, I would take LaMelo Ball for 1 steal this game, maybe just a straight bet. It is high odds, -230 is pretty high, so the books know that they're not going to let off a lot of money for this play. But LaMelo Ball for 1 steal is a good grab. Moving on to the next games that we have is Golden State versus Milwaukee. In this Golden State-Milwaukee game, let's go to covers. And head-to-head, Golden State versus Milwaukee. Milwaukee has beat them. Golden State has beat Milwaukee in their last 2 games. And the one time they played this season was February 10th this year at Milwaukee. Golden State won that game 125 to 111. Milwaukee's last 10 games, they're 6-4, coming off a loss to the Thunder. And with Golden State last 10 games, they've been doing very, very well with Jimmy Butler. I believe they're around 15-2 with him in the starting lineup. So Golden State has been doing pretty good. Like I said, the last 10 games, they're 8-2. Going over to more statistics for this game. Golden State is 21-14 at home, and Milwaukee is 14-17 away. And something that I would look at would be Golden State money line, because they have plus odds, +114 for Golden State. They're 15-2 with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games. The only downside to that is Milwaukee is coming off a loss to the Thunder, and losing to the Thunder has been pretty common this season for most teams. But Thunder is a good team, so playing a team like the Thunder, having an okay game, losing to by 15 just in the fourth quarter, being a close game, semi-way the whole game. Milwaukee could get a win over Golden State because of the size, but I can see Golden State making this a close game. Like, their spread is +2.5. That's a close game. It kind of the books kind of tell you how the game is gonna be just by how the spread looks. So Milwaukee -2.5, Golden State +2.5. If I was to do a straight bet, I would just take Golden State plus money, or could alternate Golden State's spread up maybe to -5.5, not -5.5, +5.5, for them to either win or not lose by 6 or more points. I think this is going to be a close game. So Golden State money line. Injuries. Uh, Giannis is probable for today's game with a knee injury. Damian Lillard is probable as well with a growing injury. And on the Golden State side of things, the only person out is Brandon Podziemski. So Golden State looking pretty healthy. Milwaukee kind of got some bumps. Another reason I would take Golden State money line. Golden State is fighting for positions in the Western Conference, and Milwaukee, it's been kind of slow their past couple games, man. Especially if Dame and Giannis are out. Golden State money line all day. Milwaukee does do better offensively, statistically wise, on the offensive side compared to Golden State. Not by a lot, just a couple numbers. Points per game, 114 for Milwaukee, 113 Golden State. Field goal percentage, 48% compared to Golden State, 45. And three-point percentage, 38% to Golden State, 36. If we was to look at the defensive side of things, however, Golden State is a better defensive team statistically, a lot, with points allowed per game, allowing 110 points per game compared to Milwaukee's 112. Field goal percentage allowed, they're around the same, but Milwaukee does allow less at 45 compared to Golden State, 46%. Another thing to look at is blocks and steals. Golden State is a better team defensively on the statistics side of things with blocks and steals, with blocks sitting at five blocks per game, Milwaukee at 4.8. And with the steals, Golden State averages around 9 steals per game, which is a lot compared to Milwaukee's 7.3 steals per game. So if Milwaukee turns the ball over more than average, than more than they normally do, around, if they get around 7, 8 turnovers for this game, I can see Golden State getting the win in this game. Mainly because of their defensive stats and just the run that they've been on. They got energy with Jimmy Butler on the court. Curry, Draymond, they could have a good game. Curry's going to do what he do, but if Draymond has a big game along with Jimmy Butler, I can see Golden State winning this game. Some alternative line analysis I do have for this game is Giannis for 20 to 25 points. 20 if you want to be safe, to put it on some type of parlay. Giannis for 8 rebounds, 8 for a parlay, 10 if you want to do it straight. His line is at 12.5. I probably wouldn't take his over 12.5 rebounds, mainly because Golden State does take good shots. They don't really, they miss their shots, but they're most likely not gonna miss, enough times where Giannis can't get the board 13 times. So yeah, Giannis 8 rebounds on a parlay. For Curry, I have Curry at 15 to 20 points. He does have good rebound percentages versus Milwaukee, so I would put him at 3, maybe 4 rebounds. 4 rebounds is his line for today, so 3.5, you could take him for 4. I would put him for 3 on a parlay maybe, and then for threes made, I got 3 plus threes made. Curry for three threes, throw him on a parlay. He's gonna get that. And for Damian Lillard, I'll have 15 to 20 points. Dame's 15 is pretty much guaranteed. If you want to add value to him, I would throw him at 20. And those are the only three players I have for today on the alt lines side of things. So just to take a quick time out, the way I do my analysis, I don't do many game lines. I only do alt lines. I know it sounds like, oh, it's not really too much of analysis if you're doing alt lines, but the alt lines I'm doing are the guaranteed analysis alt lines. Like I said, Porzingus 15 points. His line is at 17 and a half. So, I mean, bump it down 2, 3 points. You got good value for him. Also, with him never going back to back games without getting 15 points this season without Jaylen Brown in the lineup. That's another thing to look at. So I mainly do alt lines because I learned my lesson. We're trying to look at something that's really 50-50 like that. Really, the game lines that the sportsbook have, they can go 50-50 unless you have an edge that you see that others don't. Well, take that edge. But in my defense, I don't really do well with the normal lines just because I know it can go either way because the normal lines are always based off their average. And more than likely, a player is not going to average the same amount throughout 82 games in a season. Unless it's Shea Gilgeous, or maybe someone that gets the ball a lot like LeBron or Luka. The usage has to be the same throughout every game this season for them to continually hit their game line for the day, for that day. Last game of the day, we got Cleveland versus the Clippers. I'm going to go over here to covers. Check this out. Cleveland versus the Clippers. So, Clippers are the home team. They're sitting at plus 134 money line. This is a close money line, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe Cleveland does have some injuries. We're going to check that in a second. Maybe a little bit more research on the injuries than what Covers has to offer. Right now, only Covers is showing is that Evan Mobley is questionable. And, the only reason I could see the money line being this close if it's like Mitchell or Garland out, which they're both playing. So, Cleveland minus 158 is, good value. That's great value. And on the other side of things, Clippers money line at plus 134 is great value as well. I'm not really sure. Actually, I take that back. Clippers plus 134. It isn't that much great of a value considering the team that Cleveland is, because realistically, plus 134 is kind of like okay, Cleveland has a chance to win type of game. Excuse me. Clippers have a chance to win this type of game. It's one of those type of games. So I'm not really gonna spend too much time on the money lines. We can get back to that, but back to the statistics. Clippers are 23-10 at home. Cleveland is 26-6 away. Head to head, the Clippers won their last game against Cleveland 120-118, a very close game. The game that they played before that was last year. Excuse me, both of these games were last year, so they have not played yet this season. So that may be why the money line is so close. But, Cleveland minus 158 would be a good value. I would probably pick Cleveland to win this game. Cleveland in their last 10 games, they're 9-1. The Clippers, their last 10 games, they're 6-4, coming off a win against Charlotte. Going back to Cleveland, they are coming off a loss to Orlando. So I would most likely be taking Cleveland money line just because of the loss that they came off of. And, the coach is not going for that. They're pretty good this season. They're ranked number 1 in the East. I think they come back versus the Clippers with some type of vengeance. Cleveland, on the injury side of things, all they have is Evan Mobley listed as questionable. And, that's just one player. They have a team. And Cleveland has been very good at facilitating the ball, getting the ball to all their players. And, like a Cleveland minus 158 is kind of like you know, that's good value. I never seen Cleveland that low. If it is besides being a live bet and they're down by like 10 points, they could be down 10 points live in game, third quarter, and their money line is still minus 240 for them to be favored to win. So minus 150. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but it could be because they have not played this yet this season. And the last time that they did play, the Clippers did win. Back to injuries. LA doesn't have any injuries. They have a full healthy lineup with Leonard, Zubac, Harden, Powell, and Jones. Only person that's out is Miller. Don't think he's gonna have much of a, he's not gonna do too much to this game. Going to the statistical side of things, Cleveland is a better offensive team in points per game, field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage. Points per game, they are not allowed. They average around 112 points per game compared to Clippers 111. Field goal percentage, they have a better field goal percentage, like I said, 49 to 47. And then 3-point percentage, Cleveland is up 38 to Clippers 36%. Clippers is a better free throw percentage shooting team just by 1. Going over to the defensive side of things, the Clippers are a better defensive team in points allowed per game, sitting at 108 points allowed compared to Cleveland's 111 points allowed per game. And since Cleveland's points allowed per game is at 111 and the Clippers' points per game is at 111, I can see the Clippers getting between 100 and maybe 115 points today. Field goal percentage allowed, Cleveland is a little bit better at covering up the shots, defending shooters, 45% compared to Clippers 46%. Blocks around the same, and this will be a defensive game. So the Clippers are better than Cleveland at getting steals, but it's not by much. And both these teams do average high amount of steals per game. Clippers at 9.65 and Cleveland at 8.19 steals per game. So this game is kind of all over the place. They kind of even up. They're kind of the same team, but Cleveland's record really shows that when it comes down to it, Cleveland can get the win. 11 games on the year, just coming off a loss. I'm not even sure if they lost back-to-back this season. I do think Cleveland money line is something to look at on a straight bet. Maybe taking the total, probably under, maybe alternate the total to, put it down so you can go over. But that's just what I would look at for this game. It would probably just be Cleveland money line on a straight bet just because of the odds, minus 158. Player prop wise, for the alt lines I have today, I have Donovan Mitchell for 20 points. And if Evan Mobley is out, I would take Jared Allen for 10 points and 6 to 8 rebounds. Only if Mobley is out. If Mobley decides to, not sit this game out, I'm pretty sure the money line is going to bump up to like minus 200 for the Cleveland. And I wouldn't be taking Allen points at all. And if Mobley does play, that's pretty much solidifying the Cleveland win because I don't think the Clippers have enough decent defensive help and support to stop both Mobley and Allen on the court at the same time. Zubac could cover up Allen, but if Mobley is out and Allen is in, you know, Allen and Garland are gonna run some screen pick and roll action. Is gonna get a mismatch, and I don't believe Harden or Powell would be a good matchup for Jared Allen coming off a pick and roll. So yeah, Allen 10 points, 6 to 8 rebounds, only if Mobley is out. And the two game lines that I do have, the two player prop lines that you can find on Prize Picks and all these different apps are Bogdan over 1.5 3-pointers made and Norman Powell over 1.5 3-pointers made. And just to check it out on Props Cash, if we go over to Cleveland versus Clippers, 3-pointers made, as we see Bogdan is 9 for, and he hit this line in 9 of his 11 games playing Cleveland. He had 2 before the trade. Back when he played for Atlanta, he had 2 against Cleveland this year. And the reason why I did say this is because in his last 30 games, he has never went more than 3 games at home without getting 2 3-pointers. And let me see, for the season, on a Tuesday, he is 3 for 4 cashing this line on a Tuesday this season. If we look at versus Eastern Conference teams at home, he has never went more than 2 games without cashing. So that's just something to look at home this year. He's never went more than 2 games. His usage has been down. But every time it's been down, it goes right back up the next game. So I do expect Bohan to get, 2 threes made today. I expect him to get a little bit more usage today, playing against a better team and a team that he's used to playing a lot. The Clippers don't really play Cleveland a lot, but Bogdan, since coming from the Eastern Conference over to the West, he's played Cleveland a couple times more than the Clippers have in his career. I do think he does have a good game, getting 2 threes. To the shooting guard position for Cleveland defense, they allow 32% field goal percentage on the 3-point, and they're 23rd in the league, which is terrible considering there's 31, 32 teams in the league. And, shooting guards against Cleveland have been, they have done pretty good. Max Strus and Garland, they don't really defend the 3-pointer well. Bohan for 2 threes, as well as, let's see, Norman Powell for 2 threes. I think Norman Powell is coming off of injuries. Actually, no, he's been playing. Okay. He played against Charlotte on 3/16, but the game before that was against LA 3-2. And that is the game he got injured. He only played 8 minutes in that game. But the reason why I say this is at home this year, he has gotten 2 threes made in 22 out of 26 games at home, and has never went back without 2 games, never went more than 2 games without getting 2 threes made. So that is why I would take Norman Powell over 1.5 3-pointers made. He cashes this line, his line is going to be sitting at 2.5. So I would take 1.5 while it's low, at least just for right now. I know you would say he has been injured, but I got the stats pulled up right here if you want to watch it. It's right here in your face that you would probably take the over 1.5 looking at the season. He's just, without any filters on this, he's cashed 2 threes made in 40 out of 47 games that he's played. That's, that's pretty good for Norman Powell. And that's pretty much wrapping up the video that I do have for today. I will have a link in the bio to this Excel spreadsheet. I'll probably drop it each day and each time I do these videos, just so if you want to, you wouldn't have to be looking through the video trying to find out what I was saying, or where I was seeing this at. You can just go ahead, click on the Excel sheet, look at what I have, and you know make your picks off of that. What I'm saying isn't financial advice. It is not any type of betting advice at all. I'm just simply giving you my NBA analysis for today. And that pretty much wraps up the video. And I appreciate you for tuning in if you are tuned in this far. And we'll be back tomorrow.